Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Pumpkin spice, Karen, that's gross.
I'm not ready for pumpkin spice. I feel like we missed summer.
I know, right? No. This is awake English breakfast tea, which means it has double the caffeine.
Ooh.
It might actually wake me up.
That sounds like something more I should be drinking. Especially when the weather turns, it seems all I want to do is nap and make soup.
I'm good with the soup. I don't have time for the nap. Vicki, where are you finding pumpkin beer? Garfield's, okay.
Yes, for talking.
And Victoria, was yours a beer too? Pumpkin cream nitro brew?
Nope, it's Starbucks. Oh, actually, it was cold brew, not nitro brew. It's
Okay.
Starbucks. It's
You
quite
can tell
good.
I'm not a coffee drinker.
You can find him.
90%
I mean, the last
tea.
time I saw Lino, he was going downstairs. So hopefully, if you have to, grab Matt's walkie-talkie. He got his walkie-talkie in his hand.
It is 9:30, so Penny, if you're ready, you can call the meeting to order.
I would love to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the very first CCS acquisitions meeting of the 2021 fiscal year. Woohoo! Here we are. So how do we do introductions in a Zoom meeting? Anybody want to say hi that's new? Hello to anybody who's new? No? Yeah. We're waving. Okay. Anybody have any additions to the agenda? I got one Monday just before I sent it out. So there is one new topic on there that hadn't been on there when I first sent it out. Anything else? Going once? Going twice? Okay, we have minutes from the last meeting. I sent the link to those with the agenda. I don't think I can do anything on them on myself because I wasn't there in March. I had to miss that one because I was sick, but not with COVID. I had a sinus infection. So are there any additions or corrections to those minutes from anyone who actually was there? Is everybody muted? I feel like I'm just all by myself here in this little wind tunnel.
Feel free to unmute yourself and talk.
There were no changes and corrections on my end.
Okay. Anyone, this is my bad. I knew that we had a procedure for the CAM meeting and I can't remember what it was for doing the vote to approve. Is it just assumed that it's approved unless somebody says that they don't approve?
Yes, you can ask if everyone is all right with approving the minutes.
Okay, so if everyone is okay with approving the minutes, then we'll move on. If not, speak now and whoever's forever hold your peace.
I second the motion.
There you go. Okay. So now we move on to our very exciting election of 2021 officers. I am in the lucky position of having been elected to vice chair last year, so that means I'm automatically the chair this year. And we've had some candidates move forward for our election. Victoria Luz from Niles has indicated that she would be willing to be vice chair / chair-elect. And Brenda Gornick from ELA has volunteered to be secretary. So unless somebody else wants to step forward to the floor, that is our slate of officers. I feel like it took a lot of hand wringing and arm twisting to get people to step forward. So I'm really excited that we have people who want to do this. So does anyone want to add themselves to the agenda or to the slate of officers? Hearing none, I'm going to go forward with a vote. So can I get a motion to approve the election of Victoria Luz as vice chair, chair-elect, and Brenda Cornick as secretary?
I motion.
And a second?
Second.
So anyone not approve of this slate of officers? I'm seeing a lot of approvals in the chat, so I believe we're going to move forward with congratulating Victoria and Brenda on their new position.
Thank you.
Yay!
Thanks.
Welcome new officers. Okay, shall we move on to CCS staff reports? Rachel, you have some stuff for us?
Yes. So, well, there weren't very many updates for 6.5 and nothing that really affected acquisitions too much. There is a new manual that you can download from SharePoint, and I'll post the link in chat, and you can access that and download it. It's a very good manual, and I highly recommend using it just to search for any questions that you might have. The next thing is a reminder for on-order records. We have had some reports of on-order bibliographic records that are missing the 099 field for preliminary data. And so please do check all of your templates and grids to make sure that the vendor records come in with that. Some of the records that were missing the 099 field were actually vendor records. And also to check that your 970 field contains all the data that it should have. There have been some reports of subfield L's missing from the 970 field, so that's supposed to contain the 3-letter code for your library. So that is all I have for today, and we can move on to Deborah.
Okay, let me go ahead and unmute myself. I'm going to share my screen really quickly with all of you. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen here. I'm just going to present my PowerPoint. All right, so my first update is a very obvious one, which is that Grayslake and Palatine are now live in CCS and in Polaris. So they went live last Wednesday, and we're really excited to have them both in CCS. So congratulations to the Palatine and Grayslake staff who are here today. You guys did a wonderful job. It was a relatively smooth transition, so props to all the hard work that everyone put into the project. So now that the two libraries are live, that does not mean the project is over, as I'm sure everyone remembers from our own migration to CCS or to Polaris. The work really is just starting for those two libraries. So of course, we've got a number of things that we've begun to work on since last week, one of which is deduplication of records. So when the Palatine and Grayslake data was loaded into our database. It resulted in a number of duplicate bibliographic records that could not be merged by the Polaris process. So CCS was able to identify over 12,000 duplicate bib records, and we've been slowly merging records over the past week. So we've got that number down to under 9,000, but we still have a lot of duplicate bib records to merge. So if you're interested in helping out with that work, feel free to shoot us an email, and we love volunteers just to try to get that work done a little bit faster. So we do thank you for your patience as we work through all of those dupe bibs. In addition to the duplicate bib records, we of course have just general data cleanup and item records, fields that were used by Palatine and Grayslake that aren't local practice for CCS. So again, if you encounter any issues that you want to make sure CCS is aware of, just shoot us a help desk ticket at help@ccslib.org, just so that we're aware and can address any issues you might encounter. Palatine and Grayslake staff, of course, have been very, very busy over the past month. They had started prep work for beginning Polaris acquisitions a few weeks prior to actually going live. They had already started working in production to get all of their templates, their records set up so that they'd be ready to go last week. So they have begun submitting their first orders, creating their first invoices, doing their first EDI test orders. So congratulations to your whole team. We're really, again, excited to have you on board, and you've got a whole slew of library staff here in this group who are experts on Polaris acquisitions and are ready to help answer any of the questions that you might have. So we are looking for some feedback from all of you on how the migration went. So we do have a survey that we shared in last week's CCS News, which I'm going to pop into the chat as well. So if you have a few moments to complete the survey and share your feedback, we'd really appreciate it. While we do not have any more library projects on our radar right now, in the event that we do have new libraries joining CCS in the future, we want to gather your feedback so that we can continue again to improve our process. So as part of the Palatine and Grayslake project, CCS put together a suite of online training courses to train our new members because we could no longer, due to COVID, train them in person. So we spent a lot of time in April, May, and June putting together really in-depth training materials for our new libraries and for all of our existing members. So these courses are available for everyone at training.ccslib.org. I'm sure some of you have already had a chance to check those training courses out. We've gotten some great feedback so far. We do have an entire acquisitions training course that takes roughly 5 to 6 hours to complete. So those courses were designed, again, with the intention to onboard Grayslake and Palatine library staff, but we'll be going back to those courses over the next few months to update and revise them as needed based on the feedback that we've received. So if you've already taken a look through some of the courses or maybe completed them yourself, we would love to get your feedback. We have an evaluation form that's linked to on the training page. So again, if you happen to take one of the courses, we'd love to hear your thoughts and your suggestions for how we can improve those. So go ahead and submit that evaluation form if you have a moment. And again, we'd love additional suggestions on what additional courses we could offer aside from what the offerings that you see there now. Any questions? Okay. And the last thing I just wanted to give a quick update on, now that we've completed the library projects, we are shifting our focus back to the website redesign, which we did have to push back and postpone due to COVID. And again, the focus on creating virtual training for Palatine and Grayslake. So we will be jumping back into this project at the end of this month. If you remember way back in the spring of 2020, which feels like a lifetime ago, a number of you participated in our website redesign user testing. So we had a few different options for library staff to participate in, and we used that testing to gather feedback on the pain points of our current website interfaces, of which there were many, as I'm sure all of you are familiar with. So we are going to be using that feedback that we gathered, again, to inform the project as we move along through the different phases. So right now, we are working on revising our timeline. We had initially planned to release the RFP earlier in the summer, but that didn't happen. So we are pushing that RFP release back until fall or early winter with the intention that the project would culminate and finish by summer 2021. So a little bit of a delay on this project, but that's okay. We had a lot of other things that we needed to prioritize. But if you do have any questions about the website redesign, don't hesitate to ask. Again, we are just getting our feet wet again on this project after pushing it back a little bit. So you should begin to see some updates on that trickling out through CCS News as we get the ball rolling on it again.
Great.
And that is my update. Back to you, Penny.
Thanks, Deborah. Okay, so we'll move on to business. Our first topic is on credits. Rachel's going to demonstrate how to apply credits. And then Kelly from Indian Trails had some questions.
All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So today I'm going to demonstrate 3 ways to credit an invoice. After an invoice has been paid, Polaris allows you to credit the entire invoice or specific items. So to credit the full invoice, you can navigate to Tools and then Credit. Oh, I have to close the fund. 1 second. So you navigate to Tools and then Credit, and then you would have to add in the check or voucher number to credit it. To credit just one item, you can right-click on a specific item and then press Credit. If you need to distribute credits across multiple items on an invoice, then the invoice needs to be in an unpaid state. So if you already paid the invoice, you can press Undo Payment. So there's an icon that's the hand holding the $sign with the red circle over it. That's for undo payment, or you can navigate to Tools and press Undo Payment. Then to distribute the credits, you would use the Tools drop-down menu, press Distribute, and then Credits. And you can choose to override the existing value, adjust the existing value, and distribute the credits based on the line segments or the total quantity received. And then you would have to pay the invoice again. So there are also times when you may receive a credit that would need to be distributed across multiple invoices. So while you could calculate the amount that would need to be distributed separately and apply a portion of the credit to each invoice, you could also choose to adjust the expenditures to the fund. So to do so, you would want to navigate to your fund, then adjust the fund balances. So this is the symbol for adjusting the fund balance. And you can manually adjust the total expended. And then you can add in a negative amount for the credit and add a note for the credit memo. And press OK. So this manually decreased the amount expended. So does anyone have any questions about what I demonstrated? Okay, so Kelly wanted to lead a discussion on the topic. So Kelly, you are welcome to begin that.
Hi, good morning. Actually, I think you just answered our questions because we have consistently asked, how can we partially credit on like a VAS invoice, which is our, for CLS, which is our processing. And sometimes a book is, we have to reprocess it because the spine label is wrong or something's wrong with it. And then Baker and Taylor will send us a credit. And that's what we've always wanted to know is how can we just partially credit that VAS invoice? So what we've been doing is now is just having Matt go in to the fund code and credit it that way. So you answered my question by just doing this demonstration.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions on credits? Okay, great. So next on the agenda is the delay holds for a certain period of time past the first available date. Joe?
Thanks, Rachel. With this new feature that was available with the latest update, we're looking into doing that with construction and COVID. We feel like our patrons aren't getting to see our new materials before they go out to other libraries to share. So we thought we would give this a try. But I'm wondering if anybody else is using it other than Lake Villa. I have talked to Anita. Is there anybody who's using this? Okay, I guess not. We tried adding it to our on order templates, but it doesn't seem to be working. And I do have a ticket in with CCS and that, but again, we're just trying to get some feedback to find out, is it working? Is it worth doing? Is it not worth doing? And if you are using it, what type of materials are you putting it on? Just things marked new?
Could you explain what the benefit of using delay holds is? Ela is not using that. I just want to better understand.
Sure. From my understanding, it's you're still willing to share your materials and so you don't want to change your material type, which is what drives that, if it's holdable or with other libraries or not. But you can delay the amount of time after you make it first available before it will go to like for us, non-Huntley patrons.
Gotcha.
And that, so you can pick the time frame. I think the default is like 30 days, or you could do like a week, 2 weeks, just to give your patrons a chance to actually see it on the new shelf. Because we were finding that 98% of the materials that we have that we don't have holds on for our patron end up going out to other libraries. They don't even make it to our shelves. And that's so we want to give our patrons a chance to look at them.
One of the benefits for using it is that it allows the item to be not holdable for a certain period of time without you changing the settings. So once that date has come up, then it's holdable without you changing the settings again.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I'll share my screen so I can just show you what it looks like in the item record. Hopefully, I don't know, can you see the item record I have up here?
No.
Your toolbar.
Well, that's not as fun. Hold on one second. Okay, this should work now. Hopefully now you see my item record.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this setting lives right here under the holdable settings. And of course, the holdable settings control, is the item holdable to all patrons in CCS? Is the item holdable only to your patrons? Or is the item holdable and limited to pick up only at a specific location? So this feature you can see right here lives under the patrons from this library and branches limit. So essentially what it does when you check this option is put a time frame on how long that item is holdable to your local patrons versus holdable to everyone in CCS. Normally, you'd have to go in and you'd have to bulk change these items to uncheck the limit that the item's holdable only to your patrons. So essentially, this new feature is allowing you to set a limitation that this item's holdable to your local patrons, but then say, but only for this amount of time. So you can say, you know, we want our new stuff to go first on our hold shelf. We don't want it to be sent on intra CCS hold. So you can say, all right, for at least 1 week, we want to limit holds on this item to just our patrons. And if after 1 week, we don't have any holds, then okay, then we'll make this item holdable to everyone. And you don't have to do anything to change that setting. It's tied again to the first available date. So for example, this item record, if I left this enabled, it would be holdable to local patrons for the first 7 days after it became available, at which point then it would automatically become eligible to fill holds for pickup at other CCS libraries without you having to do anything.
So other patrons would be placing holds, but they just wouldn't be filled until after the designated time.
Correct. Yep. So the patron would be able to still place the hold. So if this was the only item on the record, the patron could still place the hold, would not encounter any kind of block, and then after 7 days, their hold would be eligible to be filled by this item.
I see.
I admit it's an intriguing concept, but our selection managers haven't said that they wanted to do that. Our procedures are very built around what we had initially in Symphony, to be honest. We have anything that's on a hold shelf, or I should say a new shelf, does not go out for interlibrary loan. And those materials all carry a new tape. And I could see syncing the date, if we were to use that, finding a way to capture the items that we have to pull the new tape from. And if our selectors choose to keep something new longer than our traditional 90-day period, you know, if it's a high demand title, sometimes they'll leave it new until our holds are fulfilled. So that could be, you know, maybe 6 months before they're releasing it for interlibrary loan. While I am intrigued, I'm not exactly sure how our selection managers would be actually following through on this.
Yeah, and I would say that you bring up a good point, Kathy, about new materials. So this setting isn't necessarily, it's not tied to whether the item, again, has a new material type or lives in your new shelf location. It's just whether the item is eligible to be sent out to other CCS libraries to fill holds. So an item could remain in your new section for 3 months or 6 months or whatever time period you'd like, but it could still be then, again, eligible to be sent out to fill holds at other locations. There are a number of libraries, I think ELA is one. I feel like we're maybe halvesies with libraries that will send out new materials to fill holds. So again, they remain in the new section for 3 months, 4 months, however long the library designates or the selector designates, but they'll still, libraries will still send those new materials out. So I do think we're about half with libraries that send new materials out to fill holds, and then libraries that restrict new materials to just local patrons.
And then what ELA does to kind of balance that out, Joe, is we let our new materials go out, but we have a different section labeled as most wanted with different parameters so that we have like hot materials on site for patrons who are coming in while still being able to fill the need for our other libraries in the consortium.
We do that too. We call it hot items, but it's we don't mark everything new because of our space constraints. and our shelving. We're in the middle of a building project. So we lost our trailers and everything is smushed, and I mean smushed, into this one building. It's very, very tight, and space has always been an issue. And we share our new stuff. We have very few things that we won't send out. It's just that we also have an older population, and they don't go out as much right now, I think, and we've had some complaints that there's nothing on our new shelves and that, and it's because it's all being sent out, even though we do have some copies that are hot, but those only go out for 7 days. And some of these older patrons don't want it just for 7 days. But we also find with like our TV series, some of our music, some of our video games, those have gone out to other libraries before our patrons ever get to see that we have them, because those are things we don't mark new, partly because they're a small collection compared to other things. And we were just kind of wondering if this is going to work, to kind of give our patrons at least a chance to see what we have on shelf. But I had mentioned that I have a ticket in. We found that we had it set on our templates and it shows on our template to delay it. But when we do the on order records, it doesn't, that delay date doesn't, the number of days doesn't stay. It just stays checked that it's only to our patrons. So then you have to go in and add how many days you want it delayed, like when you catalog it. And if we have to do that all the time, I don't know. We'll see how it works. But I was just kind of curious, have other people started this other than Lake Villa? And I didn't notice, is Anita on today? Or anybody from Lake Villa that they could chime in and comment? Anita's been kind of doing it manually before this. She would mark things as only for their library, and then after so many, I think she says 2 weeks, then she would run a simple report and then do a bulk change on those items to make them loanable. So she's kind of hoping this works for them as well. And Deborah, I don't know, has she said anything more to you guys?
Yeah, as far as I know, it seems to be working for them. I believe based on Simply Report that they're the only library right now who is currently using this setting. However, we did just upgrade to 6.5 in August, so I understand that maybe everyone's been a little bit busy, might not have time to play with this setting yet. And as Joe mentioned, we are doing some testing to figure out why on order records created using a template that has the setting enabled don't have it completed. So I'm just not quite sure if that's a bug in 6.5, if the feature is not working correctly, or if we're doing something wrong. So we're doing some investigating on our end and some testing. It doesn't look like Lake Villa's on order templates have this setting enabled. So it's possible that Anita or someone at Lake Villa is doing a bulk change to put this setting in place. But I think that I would assume, I wish Anita was here, that it was doing what they expect it to do. But if it works effectively, it does save staff time, from having to go in, find items that need to be bulk changed, than actually performing that change. So fingers crossed, Joe, maybe we'll have more to report at the next meeting.
Thank you. And again, for any feedback, if anybody else tries it, if you want to just shoot me an email or something and let me know how it goes. And this did come from our selectors to ask us to do, trying to find a way, instead of having to change our material type at a certain point, but still keep them new. And I'm like, that's way too much work. So when they saw this feature in the latest updates, they thought, oh, this could be really good if it works well. But thanks for any feedback, and CCS for helping try and figure out why it's not showing correctly on the order.
A mystery. We'll figure it out though, Joe.
Thanks.
I look forward to hearing how that works, because it definitely sounds like something we'd be interested in. It would make it easier. The last item of business I had was from Stephanie from Winnetka Northfield on quarantining new materials from vendors. Stephanie, take it away.
Everyone. I just have a question about this because now that Rails has increased the quarantine time to 7 days for incoming materials that patrons have had in their homes, has anyone increased the quarantine period for new materials? Can we assume that materials that we get from vendors are virus-free when we open the box, even though they're stacked in the boxes versus standing vertically, which changes the virus livability according to the Realm study? And if after you process the materials, wearing masks and gloves if necessary, or washing your hands, how long do you keep new materials from your patrons? Because our Baker and Taylor deliveries have been really erratic lately, and we often don't get things in the building until after the release date, and then we process them and then we quarantine them again. So sometimes it's 2 weeks past release date that we can get a book, a bestseller, to our patrons. So it's kind of a problem. I think everyone understands it, but I was just wondering what everyone else is doing with new materials.
Lynn?
We started off with quarantining incoming materials, but I had a lot of conversations with vendors about what their practices are, and they are handling them the same way, and in some ways more stringently than we handle them. So we don't quarantine them anymore. We are assuming that they are using the same kind of professional COVID-19 working methods that we are. So we open them right up and process them immediately. We still can't always get bestsellers on the list by their pub date because of the erratic shipping from both Amazon and Baker and Taylor, but we don't quarantine those anymore.
We're not, yeah, sorry. I was just gonna say, we're not quarantining anything at Crystal Lake because the way that we're working, there's only one of us in the building each day of the week. So it's taking a good week to get it through all the process. So it's kind of a self quarantining process just to get it through.
At Niles, we're not quarantining either. We had the same thing with Lynn in the very beginning when we started, when we opened up to shipping again, contacted all of our vendors to find out what their protocols were and what they were doing. And we leave boxes for 24 hours, and the same with mail before handling it. But that's the only delay we have.
There are a couple of comments in chat. There are several libraries that are not quarantining, but Northbrook quarantines new materials for 7 days.
At McHenry, we're figuring that the time it spends in transit getting to us, plus the 24-hour quarantine for the cardboard box, is sufficient at this time. So once the materials come up into tech, they're received, and we are probably very unusual in terms of our departmental procedures. My team wants a 3-day quarantine between people, and that's based on earlier Realms findings. But once they leave the department, the selectors, they're so eager to see their new materials that they're released to the public very quickly. And I don't know if it's because they feel that our quarantine procedures are stringent enough, or if they feel that our internal COVID precautions and procedures are sufficient to protect staff and patrons.
Our 24-hour period is for the cardboard boxes as well. I just wanted to mention that it's not the material.
Well, thank you, everyone. That's interesting.
It would be nice if there were some hard and fast rules, but so far I haven't seen any materialize from anywhere. So we're all just doing what we can at this point. Okay, that was all of the business that we had. Does anyone have any announcements? I would like to remind everyone, if you haven't already, take a minute to sign in on the sheet that Rachel put the link to, just so that we know who all's here. And we're hoping that you're going to spell your own name correctly so that we don't have to have it corrected in the minutes later. I know Brenda would appreciate that.
Yes.
Any other announcements? Going once, going twice?
I've pasted the attendance forms link again in the chat.
All right, well, if there isn't anything else, this was a productive and yet still somehow very brief meeting. Does someone want to move to adjourn?
I'll move. So move to adjourn.
Okay,
Second?
second. Excellent.
Thanks, Lynn.
All right, we will see you again in December, I believe.
Yep.
And in the emails. Have a fabulous
Thank
day.
you.
Thank
Enjoy the
you.
Thank you,
beautiful fall
Rachel.
weather.
Thank you, Deborah, Penny, Brenda. Thanks, guys.
Good work, Penny.
Have a good day.
See you later.